Imagine your life as a container filled with energy and time. Every decision you make, every task you undertake, and every thought you allow to occupy your mind consumes some of this limited resource. But here's the problem. Many people spend most of this precious fuel on things that don't matter, distractions that don't add value, and even worse, worries that are completely out of their control. Stoic philosophy invites us to look within and ask ourselves a crucial question. What am I really controlling in my life? Often, the answer surprises us because we are so busy trying to please others, meet unrealistic expectations, or distract ourselves with superfluous things that we end up neglecting the essential thing, ourselves. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean ignoring the world around you, but rather understanding that the foundation of any real change, any meaningful achievement, begins within you. When you dedicate energy to understanding who you are, what you want, and where you want to go, the decisions you make become more conscious, and your life takes on a clearer purpose. So, in this video, we'll explore how Stoic advice can teach us to stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. These teachings are simple but extremely powerful, capable of transforming the way you face daily challenges and helping you build a more balanced and meaningful life. Now, before we move on to the Stoic teachings that can change your life, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about topics that will help you grow, live with more purpose, and find wisdom in the chaos of the modern world. After all, your transformation begins with a simple step: wanting to change. Part 1. The value of time. What the Stoics have to teach us. Have you ever noticed how time is something that simply never comes back? Every minute that passes is a piece of your life that you will never get back. For the Stoics, time is the most valuable resource we have, more important than money, material goods, or social status. But in practice, how are we using this precious resource? We often waste hours on activities that add nothing, too much social media, meaningless conversations, worrying about what other people think. When you are not clear about how you use your time, it is as if you are throwing away the most precious thing in your existence. The Stoics teach us to treat time with reverence, as something sacred. A simple practice that can transform the way you view time is to ask yourself questions before making any decision. Is this helping me grow? Is this use of my time aligned with my goals? Or is it just a distraction? Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said, "It is not that we have little time, but that we waste too much of it." In other words, the problem is not the number of hours in a day, but how we choose to spend them. Try doing a little exercise. Take a sheet of paper and write down everything you did today. Now analyze these activities. How many of them actually contributed to what you consider important? You may realize that small adjustments can have a huge impact on the way you live. By recognizing the value of time, you begin to prioritize what really matters and eliminate waste. This not only brings more productivity, but also a sense of control over your own life. After all, every minute well spent is a step towards a fuller and more meaningful existence. Part 2. The power of focus, the wisdom of focusing on yourself. In a world full of distractions and external demands, focusing on yourself can seem almost impossible. But the Stoics teach us that true strength lies in focusing your attention on what you can control, your thoughts, actions, and choices. By focusing your energy on yourself, you not only simplify your life, but you also increase your ability to live authentically and intentionally. Too often, we spend time and energy worrying about things that are beyond our control. What other people think, external circumstances, or even the behavior of others. When you focus on these issues, you lose power over the only thing that truly matters, yourself. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Concern yourself with what you can. Everything else is a waste of time." This simple but profound idea can be applied in practical ways. For example, instead of spending hours arguing with or trying to change someone, ask yourself, what can I do to improve my response to this situation? This focus on your own behavior not only relieves stress, but also gives you a sense of control over your life. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean ignoring others or isolating yourself. but rather learning to prioritize what is essential for your growth. When you direct your attention to developing skills, strengthening your mindset, and aligning your actions with your values, everything around you begins to make more sense. In practice, this can be implemented by dedicating moments of the day to reflection and adjustments. Ask yourself, what are the most important tasks for me today? Am I investing my energy in something that will benefit me in the long term? The more you practice this reflection, the easier it becomes to let go of distractions and live in a way that is aligned with your goals. The power of focus is transformative. By setting aside the external noise and directing your attention to what really matters, your evolution, you build a life with more purpose, clarity, and serenity. It's a small adjustment in perspective, but one that can yield extraordinary results. Part 3. Stop seeking external validation. The inner strength of Stoicism. In a world where the approval of others seems to be the key to success and happiness, the Stoics teach us a powerful lesson. True validation comes from within. When we are constantly seeking the approval of others, we end up becoming prisoners of others' expectations, leaving our authentic selves and our own vision of life behind. It may seem difficult not to care about what others think, especially when society encourages us to measure our worth through likes, praise, or external achievements. But Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca remind us that the opinions of others do not define who we are or our ability to live well. Epictetus, for example, said, "Freedom is the only good that does not depend on anyone." This means that when we seek external approval, we give up our freedom to be who we truly are. You need to be true to your own judgment and your own decisions. What matters is your emotional self-sufficiency, not what others think or expect of you. Practically, this means stopping constantly seeking yes or validation from others. It's not about disregarding others or becoming indifferent, but about recognizing that your happiness and worth are not dependent on external factors. By focusing on what's important to you and acting according to your own principles, you create a solid foundation of confidence and self-esteem that cannot be shaken by anyone's opinion. How can you apply this to your daily life? A simple example is to reflect on your choices. When you find yourself making decisions based on what others think, stop and ask yourself, does this align with my values and what's important to me, or am I just trying to please others? The key here is self-acceptance. When you validate yourself internally, you no longer need external permissions to be who you truly are. Remember, true strength lies not in pleasing the whole world, but in being true to yourself. When you stop seeking external validation, you find a freedom that few can achieve, the freedom to live your life authentically without fear of judgment or criticism. Part 4. Control what you can control. Free yourself from anxiety. In many moments of life, we spend an inordinate amount of energy trying to control the uncontrollable, the actions of others, external circumstances, the future. This is one of the biggest sources of stress and anxiety. But the Stoics have a clear view on this. If you can't control something, then don't waste your energy trying to change it. True peace of mind comes from understanding what is within your control and focusing on that. As Epictetus teaches us, some things are within our control and some are not. We must learn to distinguish one from the other. This simple distinction is what can transform your life. In our daily lives, how many times do we find ourselves anxious about things that are beyond our control? A change in someone's behavior is the result of a situation that we cannot predict, or even the behavior of the weather. All of these factors are beyond our control, and that is precisely why the Stoics teach us not to waste energy on them. What can we control? We can control our attitudes, our emotional responses, how we react to the situations that are presented to us. This is something over which we have complete control. For example, when faced with a challenge at work or in our personal life, instead of fighting the circumstances, ask yourself, how can I respond in the best way? What can I learn here? This focus on what is controllable not only relieves anxiety, but also creates a feeling of self-sufficiency and power. You begin to understand that although you cannot control everything, you can control how you deal with what happens. And that is enough to live with more balance and confidence. Practically, one way to apply this principle is to do a daily review. At the end of the day, reflect, what happened today that was beyond my control? How did I react to it? And what did I do that was within my control and contributed to my well-being. This exercise helps to create a more resilient mindset that focuses on what really matters. The secret to a calmer, more focused life is not in controlling the world around you, but in mastering your own mind and your reactions. When you understand and accept this separation between what can and cannot be controlled, the freedom that arises is immense. Part 5. Learn to say no. The art of prioritizing what really matters. One of the most powerful lessons of Stoicism is learning to say no. It seems simple, but we are often unable to turn down invitations, commitments, or responsibilities that are not aligned with our goals and values. This happens because we are afraid of displeasing others or missing out on opportunities. But the Stoics teach us that true wisdom lies in knowing where to put our energy and how to protect our time. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said, "Life is not short, but we make it short by wasting it." When we accept commitments that are not essential or that do not add value to our lives, we are doing just that, wasting what is most precious. Saying no is an act of courage and self-care. By saying no to something, you are saying yes to what really matters. This means that you prioritize your needs, your time, and your inner peace, instead of getting lost in commitments that do not help you grow personally or achieve your goals. The Stoics believe that we need to be selective in our choices and that, in order to live according to our values, it is essential that we know how to set boundaries. This is not selfishness. It is a form of self-awareness and self-respect. If you do not learn to say no, you will always be guided by the will of others, and this takes away your control over your own life. How can you apply this in your daily life? First, understand that your time is a limited resource, and accepting everything that comes your way will only dilute your focus and energy. When an opportunity or request arises, ask yourself the question, is this aligned with my goals and priorities? Will it help me grow or take me away from what's important? If the answer is no, be firm and say no. Saying no also means having the courage to let go of what doesn't make sense or what no longer fits into your life. It could be a task at work, a friendship that doesn't add up, or a project that takes up too much time but doesn't bring any return. By learning to say no, you free up space for what really matters, what makes you grow, what adds value to your life, and what connects you to your purpose. Remember, when you learn to say no to the inessential, you strengthen your ability to say yes to what really matters. And this ability to prioritize is what can truly transform your life. Part 6. Embrace the imperfect. Perfection doesn't require control. We live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with the idea that we must be perfect in our work, in our relationships, in our appearance. But the Stoics offer a liberating perspective. Perfection is not necessary for a fulfilling life. Instead of seeking an unattainable ideal, we should accept failures and limitations as a natural part of life and the process of growth. Marcus Aurelius, one of the main Stoic thinkers, said, "The art of life is more like fighting in the ring than dancing." This metaphor reminds us that life is not a stage for perfection, but an arena where failures, mistakes, and learning are part of the journey. For the Stoics, virtue lies in our ability to accept what we cannot control and grow from it. Accepting the imperfect is liberating. When we accept that we are not perfect and that life is full of surprises, we can live more lightly. Instead of getting frustrated with our mistakes, we can see them as learning opportunities. This helps us to let go of the fear of failure and live more authentically, without the pressure of meeting impossible standards. This change in perspective can be applied to all areas of our lives. At work, instead of trying to do everything perfectly, we can focus on delivering the best we can. In relationships, instead of demanding that others behave according to our expectations, we can learn to accept their flaws and act with more empathy. And most importantly, in our personal journey, we must understand that the path is made up of advances and setbacks, and that the important thing is to keep moving forward. How can we apply this? Instead of fighting against mistakes, start reflecting on them in a constructive way. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this failure? And how can I improve from now on? Remember, the search for perfection is an obstacle to true evolution. The practice of accepting imperfections frees us from the burden of excessive self-demand and allows us to live in a more spontaneous and balanced way. The Stoics show us that it is not perfection that brings satisfaction, but the willingness to learn, grow, and act with integrity, even in the face of failures. Accept the imperfect, and you will see how life can become richer and more meaningful. Part 7. Facing adversity with equanimity. Stoic resilience life inevitably presents us with challenges, from setbacks at work to difficult times in our personal lives. But how we respond to these obstacles is what defines our experience. Rather than giving in to anger, frustration, or despair, the Stoics teach us to face adversity with equanimity and wisdom. Stoic philosophers believe that true strength lies not in avoiding hardship, but in how we deal with it.
Adversity is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Suffering often comes from our internal resistance to what happens, from our tendency to fight against what we cannot change. Resilience begins with accepting what we cannot control. Epictetus again teaches us, it is not adversity that hurts us, but our response to it. If we accept that problems are a part of life and that we cannot change them, we can choose how we respond. Instead of getting bogged down by negativity, we can use these moments as an opportunity to grow and develop a stronger, more resilient mindset. For example, when faced with a major challenge, whether it's a loss, disappointment, or failure, instead of feeling defeated, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this situation to become a better version of myself? This doesn't mean denying the pain or feelings, but rather not letting them consume us. How can you apply this to your daily life? A simple way to practice Stoic resilience is to take a moment to breathe deeply when adversity strikes and ask yourself, what is in my control here? How can I act calmly and clearly in this situation? With this practice, you develop the ability to remain steadfast, even in the most intense storms, keeping your inner peace intact. True freedom comes when we accept adversity as a part of life and respond with an attitude of wisdom and resilience. Instead of fighting what we cannot change, we focus on what we can do, grow, learn, and live with dignity, no matter what. Part 8. Practice gratitude, the key to inner peace. In the midst of daily rushes and worries, we often forget to appreciate what we already have. We always seek more without realizing what we have already been given. The practice of gratitude is one of the greatest teachings of the Stoics. They remind us that in order to achieve true inner peace, we must cultivate a deep appreciation for everything we already have, no matter how small. Gratitude changes the way we see the world. When we practice gratitude, we change our perspective. Instead of focusing on what's missing, we start to see what's present and what we've already achieved. Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations says, today, when you wake up, remember that the impression that life is a burden comes from your own mind. Remember all that you have, what you've achieved, what's good. This simple act of remembering what we have can bring a sense of abundance instead of scarcity. In difficult times, gratitude can be a powerful tool. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, start looking for what's still good, what's still within your reach. This doesn't mean ignoring difficulties, but shifting your focus to what you can be grateful for, even in times of crisis. How can we apply this to our daily lives? A practical way to cultivate gratitude is to start and end the day with a simple reflection. What can I be grateful for today? It doesn't have to be something grand. Simply focusing on the small blessings of daily life, like a moment of peace, a meaningful conversation, or your good health, can shift your energy and perspective. Also, consider keeping a gratitude journal. Every day, write down at least 3 things you're grateful for. This simple habit can transform your mindset over time, creating a deeper connection to the present and what truly matters. Practicing gratitude isn't just about being positive. It's a way to connect with the present moment, recognize the value of what we already have, and cultivate a sense of contentment. When you become grateful, you release the constant need to seek more and begin to live in a state of peace and balance. Part 9. Appreciate the now. The value of the present moment in a world where we are constantly looking to the future or reliving the past, Stoicism teaches us to appreciate the present moment. Life happens now, not in tomorrow or in the memories of yesterday. We live in an age of constant anticipation and nostalgia, but true wisdom lies in focusing on what is right in front of us, here and now. Epictetus said, "Do not live as if you were going to live 1,000 years. Death is right next to you. While you live, while you are able, be good." This teaching reminds us that time is a precious and fleeting commodity, and that the only way to truly live is to fully enjoy the present moment. Instead of living in the hope that something will happen in the future or dwelling on past mistakes, we should embrace the present, with all its imperfections and beauty. The power of the present lies in our ability to truly live each moment with full attention. When we focus on the present, we begin to notice the little things that previously went unnoticed. The smile of a friend, the feel of the sun on our skin, a meaningful conversation. These simple but profound experiences are what truly make our lives rich and meaningful. How can we apply this to our daily lives? A simple and effective practice for cultivating focus on the present moment is mindfulness. When you are doing any activity, whether it is eating, walking, or working, devote your full attention to what you are doing. Feel the details, the taste of the food, the movement of your body, the sensation of being in that moment. This helps to take your mind off autopilot and bring your presence to the here and now. Another practical way to focus on the present is to limit the number of things you try to do at once. Multitasking may seem efficient, but it prevents us from being fully present. When you focus on one task at a time, you are more likely to do it with greater quality and enjoy every second of it. Living in the now is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. When we stop postponing happiness for the future or beating ourselves up over the past, we find peace that comes from being fully present. The present moment is all we really have, and when we fully enjoy it, our lives become fuller, richer, and more rewarding. Part 10. Cultivate self-discipline. The path to personal freedom. One of the cornerstones of Stoicism is self-discipline, the ability to govern yourself and act according to your own principles, regardless of temptations or difficulties. For the Stoics, true freedom does not lie in doing what we want at all times, but in being able to act with wisdom and control, even when we are tempted to follow our impulses. Epictetus teaches us, "There is nothing good or bad, but what we make of it." In other words, the situations we face are not good or bad in themselves, but depend on how we react to them. Self-discipline allows us to make more conscious choices instead of giving in to immediate desires that can take us away from our long-term goals. Self-discipline is a form of true freedom. When we are disciplined, we are no longer at the mercy of our emotions or external pressures. Instead, we are in control of our actions and decisions, directing our energy toward what truly matters. This gives us a sense of control, fulfillment, and ultimately freedom. The freedom to live according to our values and goals and not be enslaved by fleeting desires. How can we apply this to your daily life? Practicing self-discipline begins with small actions. If you want to improve your health, for example, commit to taking care of your body consistently, every day, without relying on momentary motivation. If you want to learn a new skill, set aside a specific time each day to dedicate to it, no matter how tired or busy you are. Another practical way to cultivate self-discipline is to establish healthy, structured habits. By establishing clear routines, you create an environment of control where action becomes automatic and does not depend on the will of each day. It also involves the ability to say no to distractions and activities that do not contribute to your well-being or goals. Self-discipline, however, is not about rigidity or punishment. It is about being kind to yourself while staying focused on your goals. The real goal is to find balance, respect your own limits, and learn to say yes to what is truly important without giving in to momentary impulses. When you cultivate self-discipline, you become stronger, more focused, and freer. True freedom does not come from the absence of rules, but from the ability to choose your own rules and live by them. Part 11. Living in accordance with nature. Harmony with the world around you. One of the central ideas of Stoicism is to live in accord with nature. But this goes beyond simple respect for the natural elements. It also refers to our own human nature and the acceptance of the rhythms and flows of life. In other words, living in accord with nature is understanding our position in the world, accepting our limitations, and acting wisely, in harmony with others and with the universe. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, speaks about this. You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This means that nature, with all its unpredictability and challenges, is something we must learn to live with. Instead of fighting it, we must work with it, understanding that we cannot control everything, but we can control our attitude towards what happens. Living in accord with nature is accepting reality as it is. When the Stoics talk about living in harmony with nature, they're not just referring to the environment, but to a deep acceptance of the natural flow of life. This includes accepting the impermanence of things, the ups and downs of existence, and human limitations. When we surrender to this acceptance, we find a place of peace as we free ourselves from constant resistance to that which is inevitable. How can we apply this in practice? To live in harmony with nature, begin to observe the world and the people around you without judgment. Accept situations and people as they are, not as you would like them to be. This does not mean passivity or conformity, but a way of acting wisely, understanding that each moment plays a role in the greater process of life. Another way to apply this principle is to practice detachment. By understanding that everything is transitory, we begin to value what we have in the moment without becoming overly attached to possessions or outcomes. This also applies to our own desires. Instead of constantly striving to satisfy them, we can learn to live with less, seeking more balance and contentment in what we already have. Living in harmony with nature also means respecting our body and mind and taking care of our health, as we are an integral part of the natural world. Our physical and emotional health should be treated with the same attention that we give to the external world. We are interconnected, and by living in a balanced and respectful way, we align our existence with the universe around us. When we are able to accept life as it is and work with its flows, we find a tranquility that comes from within. True wisdom lies in understanding and embracing what is natural, what is ephemeral, and what is inevitable. This brings a peace that is immune to external chaos. Part 12. The Art of Controlling Thoughts. How to shape your inner reality. Stoicism teaches us that our thoughts shape our reality, and so learning to control them is one of the greatest paths to inner peace. We are constantly influenced by our thoughts, which are often full of anxiety, pessimism, or automatic reactions to situations. However, we have the power to choose how we react to these thoughts, directing our minds to what really matters. Epictetus stated, "It is not things that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them." This means that if we can change our perception of events, we can change our emotional experience. The way we interpret what happens around us defines our response. The external world is uncontrollable, but our internal thoughts and attitudes are completely controllable. The key is to transform our mind. The Stoics did not deny negative thoughts or difficulties, but taught that by focusing on our internal reaction, we can transform our perception. The human mind, by its nature, tends to exaggerate situations, create fearful scenarios, or hold on to worries that are often unfounded. The first step is to become aware of these thoughts and then consciously choose how to respond to them. How can you apply this to your daily life? The practice begins with constantly observing your thoughts. When you notice a negative or limiting thought, ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is it helping me or hurting me? By questioning the validity of your thoughts, you begin to take control of your mind, no longer being held hostage by the ideas that automatically come to you. Another powerful tool for controlling your thoughts is mental reframing. This means replacing negative thoughts with more balanced and realistic alternatives. For example, if you are thinking, "I will never be able to do this," reframe it to, "I haven't got it yet, but with patience and effort I can improve." This transforms a paralyzing thought into something motivating and realistic. The Stoics also teach us not to get attached to our emotions, but to observe what we feel with detachment, without reacting impulsively. When we can understand that emotions are temporary responses and that we have the power to choose how we react to them, we become more calm and centered. By controlling your thoughts, you transform your internal reality. Every thought you cultivate has the power to shape the way you see the world. If you learn to direct these thoughts in a more constructive and balanced way, your experience of life will become much more peaceful and harmonious. Power is not in external control, but in the ability to control your own mind and thus your inner peace. Part 13. The importance of daily reflection, the path to self-knowledge and personal growth. The practice of daily reflection is one of the most powerful habits recommended by Stoic philosophers. They believed that in order to live a virtuous life aligned with the principles of wisdom, justice, and courage, it was essential to dedicate time each day to reflect on one's actions, thoughts, and feelings. Reflection is not just a technique for evaluating the past, but a fundamental tool for self-knowledge and continuous growth. Marcus Aurelius, in his writings, invites us to stop and ask ourselves, what did I do today that contributed to my well-being? What could I have done differently? How can I be a better person tomorrow? These moments of reflection help us become aware of our mistakes and successes, and more importantly, they allow us to learn from them. When we reflect, we are not only analyzing what happened, but also deciding how to act in the future with greater wisdom. Daily reflection is a practice of self-understanding. When we look at our actions and thoughts honestly, we begin to notice patterns, automatic behaviors, and even limiting beliefs that shape our lives. This insight allows us to make adjustments, course corrections, and more conscious decisions. Each day, we are invited to improve ourselves, and it is in reflection that we find the key to this progress. How can you apply this to your daily life? Start the practice of reflection at the end of each day, even if it is for a few minutes. Take a moment in silence to ask yourself, what did I do today that brought me closer to my true essence? What took me away from my goals and values? Evaluate your actions without judgment, with compassion, but also with the desire to grow. By doing this, you will be more aware of your choices and better prepared to act with greater clarity the next day. In addition, use reflection to identify areas where you can improve. If you find yourself getting carried away by an impulse or failing at an important task, reflect on the reasons that led you to that situation. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I act differently next time? Daily reflection can also be done through a self-awareness journal, where you write down your experiences and feelings. This helps you organize your thoughts, understand your emotions, and transform difficulties into learning experiences. Writing has the power to free your mind and provide clarity on what needs to be adjusted. The process of continuous reflection strengthens your mind and character. As you practice daily reflection, you begin to notice constant internal growth. Each small analysis of your actions and thoughts brings you closer to the person you want to be. The Stoics believed that the search for virtue was a never-ending journey, and daily reflection is the fuel for that journey. Over time, it becomes a natural practice that continuously drives self-knowledge and personal development. By investing in daily reflection, you are creating a cycle of constant personal evolution, where each day is an opportunity to become a wiser and more balanced version of yourself. As we have seen throughout this guide, the teachings of the Stoic philosophers are not just abstract concepts, but daily practices that, when applied, can profoundly transform our way of living. Through focusing on ourselves, self-discipline, gratitude, controlling our thoughts, and constant reflection, we can find a path to a more balanced, meaningful life, and above all, in harmony with what really matters. Remember, the power to change your life is in your hands. The Stoics show us that true freedom does not come from controlling the external world, but from achieving inner peace and the wisdom to deal with everything that life presents us. Every action we take, every thought we choose to cultivate, brings us closer or further away from a more virtuous and fulfilled life. So how about starting today? Start implementing these Stoic principles into your life and see how, over time, they can change your perspective and bring more clarity, tranquility, and purpose to your journey. If you enjoyed this content and want to continue receiving valuable tips on how to live a more balanced life focused on ancient teachings, subscribe to the channel. Don't miss the chance to transform your life for the better, and remember, every step you take towards self-knowledge is a step towards true freedom.